Yellowstone National Park is world famous for its geothermal wonders, home to more than 10,000 hydrothermal features in the world. Its Old Faithful geyser erupts every 90 minutes, and at its core lies the largest supervolcano on Earth. Yet despite all of this, somehow Yellowstone has managed to stay off the media's radar in recent years. We've got used to hearing about it only every few decades when some poor soul decides to ignore the warning signs and gets boiled alive by one of the park's many hot springs. It seems like just such an event waiting to happen, yet something always seems to save the day. In today's episode, we're going to talk about what Yellowstone really hides from the public and why. Hi, I'm here with Minute Earth. So there have been no recorded deaths caused by Yellowstone's geysers or hot springs, at least not since the early days of tourism in the park. And that's not because people haven't gotten close. Plenty of tourists have tested their luck. Some have even dangled their feet in the scalding waters to see if they could get away with it. And so far they have been, well, mostly. There was that time back in 2016 when a guy decided to take a midnight dip in the aptly named Abyss Pool. He was cited with criminal mischief and disorderly conduct, fined and banned from the park for life. But those are the mild cases. The fact that we don't hear about more people getting boiled alive at Yellowstone is thanks to the hundreds of thousands of pounds of mud that the park hides from the public. In order to understand how Yellowstone keeps its water boiling without boiling people, let's start with the basics of how geysers work. Geysers form where groundwater can seep deep into the ground where it's heated by magma, then percolate up through narrow openings in the rock. As the water rises, pressure builds until the water reaches a critical temperature and ejects out of the ground. At Yellowstone, the water shooting up from these vents can reach temperatures of 204 degrees Celsius, hot enough to burn human flesh in under a second. So why do people sometimes seem to walk away from these encounters unscathed? Well, the most important factor in surviving a trip into a scalding hot spring has nothing to do with your proximity to the vent and everything to do with the chemistry of the water itself. Boiling water has a lot of dissolved silica in it, which forms a gel that insulates the water and transfers heat slowly. Mud, on the other hand, has a lot less silica and so doesn't transfer heat as efficiently. That means a person wading through mud can escape serious injury even if they're surrounded by 200-degree water. Mud also makes it easier for people to grab onto things around them to help pull themselves out of the water. There's another benefit to mud that we humans didn't discover. A new study shows that mud from Yellowstone's hot springs might actually be protecting the very microbes that live in them. When the water reaches the surface, it rapidly cools, and the silica in it crystallizes, forming a protective crust over the mud below. This helps protect the microbial communities living inside from sudden temperature swings and nasty chemicals in the air. So while it may not protect you from getting a bad case of scald, mud might just be helping life thrive at Yellowstone. But wait, this is supposed to be a scary video. Where are the people getting boiled alive? To be clear, people have gotten burned and even killed by Yellowstone's hot springs. But the reason that those events aren't common is that mud isn't the only thing insulating the pools. Over the millennia, the silica in the boiling water has built up into another kind of insulation, a hard layer of limestone that surrounds each pool. The walls of these limestone pools can be as much as 15 meters thick, and they help keep the water insulated and protect the gushing water from the people gawking at it. There are two main reasons that these limestone pools have been able to build up so tall and thick. The first is that the pools near the surface don't get as hot as the ones deeper in the ground. They're heated by the warm water percolating up from below, and eventually that water reaches the boiling point and starts overflowing. Second, the water coming out of the vents moves pretty fast. It travels so quickly that it doesn't have much time to cool down, meaning that it's not depositing as much silica as it travels over land. Yellowstone National Park sees between 4 and 5 million visitors every year, and though we can't say for sure exactly how many people have stuck their toes into the hot tubs, we do know that dozens of people have had to be rescued after falling in. These lucky folks owe their lives to both the mud and the limestone, which protected them from the scalding water long enough for them to get out safely. Now, mud and limestone aren't the only forces working to keep tourists safe from harm. All of Yellowstone's pools are cordoned off with boardwalks and fences to keep people from wandering too close. There are signs posted at every pool telling visitors the maximum fine they might pay for violating the rules, which can be as high as $500. And park rangers patrol the boardwalks regularly, citing people who get too close to the pools. But these safety measures aren't foolproof. In 2000, a woman slipped past barriers and climbed into a hot tub at night, and shortly thereafter, she was found dead. Her death prompted the installation of motion sensors along the boardwalks near the pools. If someone crosses the boundaries, alarms sound and rangers rush to the site. Though we don't know exactly how many times these alarms have sounded in the last 2 decades, we do know that it's happened multiple times. Every single time someone has been caught trespassing in one of Yellowstone's pools, they've been cited with criminal mischief, disorderly conduct, or some other crime. Most recently, a man was fined for sitting in a closed area next to a hot spring in 2020. In addition to the penalties associated with getting caught, trespassers could face consequences even if they aren't caught. Humans aren't the only creatures living in Yellowstone. The same geothermal activity that creates these beautiful pools is also home to bison, elk, wolves, bears, and more than 300 other species of mammals. When people enter the hot springs, they're disturbing the habitat of all these animals, which could have major consequences for the entire ecosystem. Plus, any bacteria on a trespasser's skin could end up in the hot springs and alter the chemical makeup of the pools, which could kill the native microbes living there. And that would be a real tragedy because these pools are more than just beautiful landscapes. They're a unique part of our planet, giving us a glimpse of the amazing processes that occur beneath the Earth's surface. And mud might be helping protect them. Thanks for watching this episode of SCI Show.